Yeah, so just get yourself together and keep yourself healthy and go get checked out. Go see the doctor. Don't wait till last minute, especially when it comes to mental health. We, I must say this personally. We New York City, New Yorkers, I should say, we are mentally tough, but we are also mentally exhausted from all of this nonsense going on, especially in the city with when it comes to ICE and them coming here and doing their raids and all their nonsense and all their crap. And then before that, the migrant situation, which is tied to ICE, and them having, come here and basically not doing right by them either, by overcrowding in hotels and then throwing them out and then treating and then all that stuff, and they didn't really do right by them either. Not to say also that for the fact that is, if once they came here and they realized they didn't have no plan for them, they should have did right by them and put them somewhere or went somewhere where they can get help. And I'm just going to say it on record, it's not be prejudiced or racist or anything like that. But the fact of the matter is that Adams, the last mayor, bit off more than he can chew, and he basically fumbled that, and those people just fell through the cracks. And yeah, okay, some of them were some bad folks and criminals and all that other stuff, but there was some families in there and all that stuff like that. It was just a jacked up situation. And then we were just getting off COVID, or ending not ending COVID because COVID's still around, but we're still opening things up, and we're exhausted, we're tired. I know, it's tiring. There's always something on the trains or the buses. You got these mentally ill folks out there bothering people, hurting people, killing people, then, the simple thing is, people say, oh, why don't you just put them in the hospital, or why don't you just lock them up? Can't do that. Can't do that, because these people have rights like everybody else, and all they do is find a place to go or a person to talk to, and they get out of it. And that's the problem. That's the issue here. Like, they're not being helped, or they're not getting the help they need, and that's the problem. And also is they're not being held accountable for what they do. If they do wrong, they get a slap on the wrist, and that's jacked up too. Like I said, we're tired. I know when New York, when they say New York tough, I mean we mean that. When New York tough, but we're tired, we're exhausted. Like, it's always something. Like when I take my family out, we gotta, be on, not necessarily on guard, but just be like, hey, just in case, just be careful out there and be mindful. I got a grandmother in the Bronx, she'd be there by, mostly about herself. I tell her to be careful, and it's like, oh, nah, most New Yorkers be like, nah, we good, we got this, we can handle it, oh, you just talking, and then, you this and that. Listen, I don't care how tough or how tough you think you are. There's somebody that's tougher. There's somebody that's stronger. There's somebody that's faster. There's somebody that's meaner. Somebody that's nastier. And it's been apparent here in New York City over the past couple of years. And I pray to God every day that, nothing happens, nothing bad happens, that we can handle it, that if anything does bad happen, that we can handle it, that we can overcome it, that we go through it, but we New Yorkers, we tired, man. We tired, and it's always something. It's always something. It's always something or somebody, and the trains, the buses, like I said, and then the migrants, and then it's like, you get, you know, Governor Hochul and the mayor, Danny now, the new one, you know, especially with Hochul, crime is down. I'm like, where? I mean, probably in certain areas, yeah, but, you know, it's always something going on. It's always something happening, and that's the problem, you know, and police can't always get to you, and most, you know, speaking as a black man, you know, that's our last resort. We really don't like to mess with them either, you know, but sometimes you have to, and sometimes you have to deal with them. So, but they're not always going to come right away, and they're not always going to, and most of the time they don't want to be bothered unless it's something serious, and then they take their sweet time getting here. I can tell you from experience. That's why I do myself best to defend my family and myself. You have to stay out here with me and your sister's sleeping. Excuse me? Well, just go over there then. My oldest. What do you want? No more juice. You had enough. So, we've done it. And it's like, just been debating also possibly moving to another state, or you can't have no coffee. You know better. Don't do that, Diana. Why don't you go watch YouTube on your phone, and don't bother your mother and your sister. So, like I said, once again, very unfiltered here, this episode. New York is starting to suck. Maybe it is time to leave here. Like, you know, if you can, you got the means to, then do that. Oh, if you don't, then you're here, do what you gotta do. But, you know, they say focus on God, not the problem, which I do. Sometimes these problems can be overwhelming, and I think sometimes, you know, you have to go through that to get to where you want to be, or what God wants you to be. But sometimes it's like, wow, it's like a lot. It's like, what is going on here? Especially the last month with Diana, my oldest, and her school, and that trifling bus company. So, and I don't know why people just can't do their job and do right by the kids. I don't understand why people can't just do right, period. I think people are entitled, and then they just want to do what they want to do when it comes to just you playing this now? You playing this game now? Yeah, she's always playing, downloading some game on Google Play. Gotta watch your kids when you on these phones here. You know, you don't want them watching or seeing anything that they're not supposed to. But most of these people, they get these, and going back to what I said before, with the bus company and the schools, and just in general here in the city, I've noticed that you don't want to play it no more? You want to watch YouTube? what I've noticed is that people just work to work and get over for a check. Here you go. But when you're dealing with children, you're dealing with people, and you gotta be a little interpersonal. All I'm saying is, just do right by them. Or maybe it's time to find a profession. Me personally, as nice as I am, as chill as I am, I prefer to not be around people for as long as I have to be. If if it's important, then fine. If I can avoid the conversation or not deal with, certain individuals or groups, stuff like that, I do my best not to be bothered. But if I have to be bothered, I keep it short and simple to the point. And like like any job I would have is basically like a warehouse or something overnight, where it's less people, less interaction. Because at one point in time, in a galaxy far, far away, I was a people person. I was. Not so much now. Not so much now. Getting a little older and realizing that a lot of folks, a lot of individuals are just so full of themselves, so miserable, so downtrodden that they want to make you that. I do my best not to be bothered. Call it antisocial, call it hypocritical. Oh, you supposed to be a Christian, no, you supposed to love your neighbor and all that stuff. Yeah, I do all that. But sometimes you gotta love people from a distance, and sometimes you don't need to be bothered and hold people accountable as well. I said that. So, I got young ones here. I got babies here. I got a wife here. I'm surrounded by girls. I gotta protect them best way I can. God protects them first, but I gotta protect them second. I do my best to. So, if people can just, agree to disagree more, or just leave people alone. Like I had a thing yesterday. I'm not gonna get too much into it, but where we live at, and these people that work here, don't like me for obvious reasons, because I complain about things and I'm not doing their jobs, and they basically want to sit here and collect the check and want to get nasty. And I had to get with them a couple times, several times too. They don't. People. What I understand is people don't like when you treat them the way they treat you. And I've been having to scale back on that as well, because I am not trying to get high blood pressure, which I already have. I'm not trying to get to the point where I get upset and mad, because at the end of the day, I'm only hurting myself. But sometimes you have to let people know that no, you're not going to talk to me like that. I'm not dealing with that. So what happened was, just walking down the block here, the super of the building, just smirking, and it seemed like he wants to engage with me. So I just, pretty much, I blew him off. I said, "Hello, what are you doing? Can I help you?" Like, okay. He keeps staring at me, looking at me like I'm stupid. So I like, whatever, walk off. And I realize that, I'm walking and he's still behind me. And then there was this other guy walking on the side of me before that. And my pet peeve about all of that is I don't like people too close to me. If I don't know you, I don't want you close to me. Especially when I have the girls I don't like. It's just something. I just no, you don't do that. And they did that, and I didn't say anything. I just watched them, from my front view, my peripheral, and just made sure that they weren't doing anything stupid. And as I crossed the street, they're like still staring at me, and I'm like, what the frick is that about? So I'm like, that goes back to my argument. People would just sometimes just be looking for things because what they're in their feelings, or they don't like you for whatever reason. And as long as you don't engage, as long as you don't do anything unless it is absolutely necessary, and most of the time it's not, unless it's absolutely necessary where you have to defend yourself or you have to speak up for yourself, you know, let them run their mouth, let them talk, let them do that stuff, because most of the time, most of these people are cowards anyway. Most of the time, they just look for things. They look for things. I know they're trying to look for something here to mess with me, so they could see if they could find a way of getting us out of here, or trying to mess with us or something like that. Like I said, I already did what I had to do when it comes to that. Where grievances and letters and all that other stuff, I'd be tired of that too. Like, sometimes you want to go upside somebody's head, but you gotta think first. And if it happens again, it's a possibility where I'm going to have to speak to this gentleman and be like, hey, we're not going to do that. We're not. Period. So I want to be honest and open to you, my audience, about all this, because I want to let you know what's going on in my world, in my perspective. And I'm not looking for sympathy or empathy or anything like that. I'm just telling you how it is and how I feel about everything and what is going on. Period. So I just hope that before the end of this year, before this year's out, we out of here. And we gotta deal with none of this crap. Yeah, there might be issues at the next place. But you know what? So be it. Because at this point, I'm like, let's get it. Let's get it. Because at this point, that's where it's going to have to be. Gonna have to. For my wife's sake, for my daughter's sake, for our family's sake. Peace of mind, Yeah. And my therapist is like, oh, you gotta find an outlet. I said, I do have an outlet. I talk to the Lord, talk to God, I pray. I play my video games. Certain games I probably shouldn't be playing, Hitman, Sniper Elite, stuff like that. But those are outlets. They are it's better to play a game, and even though it is somewhat violent and something like that, than to go out there and get in trouble. And it's best to, Diana, where you going? Don't wake them up. They have to get